The current Ripley is night and day more capable than the previous generation Ripley.
So much stability from this bike, and it's insane how controlled the Geo feels.
Why'd you pick Ripmo over Ripley?
I wanted the extra travel, man.
Yeah.
I wanted a little extra cush going down the heavy stuff.
So I've talked about all the stuff that I love about the Ibis Ripley, so what is there that I don't like about this bike? Because there are a few things. What's up, you guys? Mo Awesome from Awesome MTB. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another bike review. Today we have something that was much requested by you guys. This is the brand new Ibis Cycles Ripley V5. So if you guys were following our trail bike buyer's guide, we actually reviewed the Ripmo. A lot of you guys requested the Ripley and here we are today. Now, if you haven't been following along with Ibis Cycles, the Ripley and the Ripmo got full on revamps last year. They got a little bit more aggressive, a little bit different tweak to their suspension kinematics, and a huge difference to the Geo. And I'm really excited to have this bike in our quiver right now because we have a huge project coming at you guys soon. I think I've been hinting at it over the last couple of videos, and if you guys have been paying attention to the bikes I've been riding, I think you guys know what's coming up. The Ripley will be in it. I do have to make some tweaks to this bike, so I wanted to get a couple of rides on this bike stock to give you guys my impressions on that. So a little bit about the Ripley. It's still an Ibis Cycles bike, so it has DW Link suspension design, but this year it has 140 millimeters of travel up front and 130 millimeters of travel in the rear. Now this right here is their Shimano XT build. It has a Fox 34 fork up front, has a Fox float rear shock. It has a Shimano XT 1x12 drivetrain. Up front, we are running Ibis's own carbon handlebars as well as Shimano XT brakes. For the dropper post, we have a bike yoke dropper post on there. For wheels and tires, we're running Ibis's own Blackbird Send wheels. Now, these are going to be a little bit of a wider profile than most other alloy wheels on the market. And we have a Minion DHR2 up front with a Recon tire in the rear. Now, I went with a size extra large test bike. I'm 6'2" for reference, and I absolutely love the XL. Ibis actually did a full revamp of their Geo chart. We'll talk more about that a little bit later on, but yeah, 6'2", and this is a size XL. And this build in the XL with pedals is coming a little bit over 32 pounds. Now, that is a little on the heavier side in comparison to the previous gen Ripley. I think my old Ripley, I got it down to about 26, 27. I don't think I'd be able to get as close with this current Ripley. However, I do think this is a lot more capable than the previous Ripley, and once again, we'll get into that a little bit later on. What this Ripley has that the previous gen Ripley didn't is internal frame storage. Now, before we get into what I love about this current Ripley and what I don't love, and also some things that I think you guys should know about before you make the purchase of this bike, let's actually take you guys on the trails to show you guys how this thing rides. I do also want to give a huge thank you to one of the largest Ibis Cycles dealers in the nation and one of our favorite online bike shops to work with, and that is Jensen USA. If you didn't know, Jensen USA is one of the largest online bike shops out there, and they are awesome. They have so many bikes and parts in stock ready to ship to you with same-day shipping. Their prices are incredible, and their customer service is second to none. They are rider-owned and have been around for 30 years, so they know how important it is to not only get the best deals, but also keep the time off the bike to a minimum. So like I said, they offer same-day shipping, and their customer service is backed by gear advisors to help make picking the right item or bike out very simple. And like I said, their prices are incredible. Some of the best deals in the industry, and I personally love playing around with their online bike builder because like I said, they have so many rad brands to choose from. The customization options are endless, and we can't recommend Jensen USA enough. Once again, you guys, I can't recommend Jensen USA enough. In today's market, it's not importantly to get the best deal on the bike that you're going to be buying, but it's also important that that great deal comes with amazing customer service. And Jensen USA does the best job of giving you both the best price as well as the best customer service to back that price. We're going to go ahead and link them in the description of this video. Huge thank you, Jensen USA, for sponsoring this video and making these videos possible.
Hey, you guys, welcome back to another bike review out here in Aliso Wilderness Park. This section's always tricky, a little steep and techy here. Kind of want to push through, no problem for the Ripley. The Ripley has such a dialed seat angle Loving the steepness, and it's a big bike. We'll talk more about that soon, but no issues. It's an Ibis, it's gonna pedal well. You guys know we love to start off with 5 Oaks when we're here. The Ripley, such a blast, man. Insane send on that. What a plush feel from the suspension feel from this. It's probably one of the best feeling Ibises I've felt to date. It's pretty insane. So good downhill. I love the reach. Very big. And the stability through this chunk is insane. Coming through here. And this is where it's gonna get fun. This section right here, we're gonna huck off a little bit. So much stability from that long front end. And I love the chainstay length on this. A little on the longer side than is normal for Ibis. A little bit of chunk down here. And then through the rolls. So good. Now I will say, I am on an XL, like I mentioned earlier, and I think this thing fits me like a glove. And if anything, I want more of my bikes to feel this big. A couple of good corners. The Ripley does so good in them. And then through the chunk. This section, you want to be careful. It's super slick. No issues for the Ripley. What goes down must go up. We're going up a trail called Choya. The Ripley, once again, you guys, it's an Ibis. We know it's going to pedal amazing. And the Ripley is no exception, if not even better, because of that steep seat angle. Such an efficient feeling from the DW Link. A lot of you guys are probably going to be asking questions about this in comparison to that Trailcat, and we do have that series coming up, but the direct comparison climbing wise, I've always felt like even though both Pivot and Ibis have DW Link, I feel like Ibis has a little bit more of an active version of it when it comes to climbs. It does amazing on technical climbs like that. The bike feels very well planted. Does it feel like it tightens up as much as the Pivots do? I don't necessarily think so. I think Pivot might be slightly more pedal efficient. I do think though, that's gonna be a huge bonus on the climbs. And still, DW Link is night and day more efficient than a lot of other suspension designs out there.
Yeah, man, I bought my Ripmo based off your video.
No way.
Yeah.
Super cool. How do you like the Ripmo?
Well, dude, it's my second ride on it, so I'm not fully dialed in on it yet, but I'm really liking it. It's high quality, man. I'm still making some adjustments on the suspension, but last time I went down links, I think the fastest I've ever been down it.
Why'd you pick Ripmo over Ripley?
I wanted the extra travel, man.
Yeah.
I wanted a little extra cush going down the heavy stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
I have a little bit of fun on the Ripley. This is a trail called Rocket. Honestly, I think my favorite trail in Laguna, just because you have a little bit of everything. You have some pedaling, some tech, and you have this rock garden. So easy to find flaws in suspension designs in this thing. And the Ripley, my God, what? Oh, I dropped the bottle again. We're gonna leave it and come back for it, because I got the momentum. Oh man, so much stability from this bike. And it's insane how controlled the Geo feels. Absolutely loving this thing. Coming through here. God, so much control of the bike, even with that slack head angle. I really do think this has probably been one of my favorite suspension designs out of all the bikes I've tried. Now this is where the real fun begins, these little corners. And you know, for as stable as this bike feels, once again, it is an Ibis. It's gonna be fun. And it retains a lot of that playful feel. I do feel like that's what most brands try to achieve. Obviously, you can go big in one direction with stability, or you can keep it playful. I feel like Ibis does a good job with their new lineup of doing both. Couple of really good corners down here that you can play around with on this bike. This might be my new favorite bike. I'm not sure, guys.
All right, so hopefully you guys enjoyed that ride. So the first thing I want to talk about is climbing. This is an Ibis Cycles bike, so it did climb amazingly well. You guys know me, I love DW Link suspension design. It has a very efficient pedaling platform, both in and out of the saddles. And I feel like these seat angles really stood out to me. They definitely went steeper on this current Ripley, and I loved how it felt like you were right on top of the bottom bracket for those steep climbs. I feel like if you're someone that lives where you have big, long, steep climbs and you have big descents after, this is definitely gonna be a bike that's gonna appeal to you. Normally on XL bikes, you look at the numbers on paper, then you take the bike out on the trail. It doesn't feel that way. This feels as steep as it is on paper out on the trails, and that's something that I really appreciate from the Ibis Ripley. In terms of the pedaling platform, it does feel a little bit more on the active side in comparison to some other DW Link bikes, specifically that Trailcat. I do think that initial stroke does have a little bit of added traction on there. That's going to be amazing for technical climbs. We'll say in terms of out of the saddle sprints, maybe you'll feel a little bit more bob than something like the Pivot Trailcat, but it is interesting how it's the same suspension line between those two bikes, but you do have a little bit of different ride ride characteristics on climbs. I do think that the Ibis Ripley is a little bit more suited for tech-style climbs, but it still does amazingly out of the saddle as well. Another thing that I appreciated on the climbs was the geo itself. I do like those size proportional chainstays, so this does have 442 chainstays on the XL, and it has a very long front end, so it felt like everything was very easy to keep the front end down and also traction going when I'm in the saddle. I didn't feel like I had to shift my body weight as much. I felt like it was a very balanced feel on the climbs, and yeah, this was something that I really did appreciate on more steep style climbs where it was a little bit on the looser side. I didn't feel myself shifting my body weight as much. It's just kind of put the power down, you'll get up there in a very fast manner. Now, in terms of downhill, the current Ripley is night and day more capable than the previous generation Ripley. I was blown away at how stable this bike felt at speeds. It's got a very monster-like feeling on long straight sections, with the previous generation definitely struggled with. The previous generation Ripley was definitely on the more playful side. You still get a playful element with the current Ripley, but it is clear Ibis did not want to mess around when it came time for stability with the current Ripley. This, I would say, is probably one of the most confident, inspiring 130mm bikes I have tested, and we'll talk more about that in that buyer's guide. I was continuously blown away by how confident this bike felt in the steeps. The other thing that I absolutely loved about this bike on the downhills was it still felt like an Ibis. It still had that playful pop feel that you want in and out of corners. That's something I've always loved about Ibis bikes, is how playful they can make 29ers. Now, it might not be as playful as the previous Ripley, however, you still get that classic Ibis pop in and out of corners, even though they were able to increase stability there. I also love how this bike corners. It really does feel like it holds a line really well. Like I said, this does have size proportional chainstays, so it felt like a very balanced geo from the rear end to the longer front end. And on top of that, I felt like the bottom bracket was at that sweet spot. It wasn't too low to where I felt like I was clipping rocks, but at the same time, it felt low enough to where this thing really does feel on rails in and out of corners. I also think this iteration of DW Link on the Ibis Ripley feels so controlled out on the trails. I just felt like it had a little bit more of a bottomless feeling to this 130 platform. In the past, I definitely haven't felt like Ibis bikes are as bottomless as some other bikes out there. Some people really do appreciate that. It definitely led to a little bit more of an efficient feel out of their bikes. However, with this current iteration of DW Link on the Ibis Ripley, you definitely have a little bit more of a bottomless feel to the bike. Once again, this only does have 130mm of travel on paper, but it feels way more bottomless when you're out on the trails. And yeah, I was very impressed by how that end stroke of travel felt on the Ibis Ripley. So I've talked about all the stuff that I love about the Ibis Ripley, so what is there that I don't like about this bike? Because there are a few things. The first thing is probably going to be the geo chart. Now, I did bring this up in my Ritmo review, so Ibis definitely revamped their geo chart. They added an extra size because they found that most of their customers fall in between a medium and a large, so they have that extra medium, I believe. And yeah, overall, I think this has led to a lot of confusion. Now, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love the new XL. This feels like a proper XL. It has a massive reach on the trails, it's super confident up front, and I really do love the geo numbers on this XL. I still think that if you're looking at the current geo chart on the website, you might get scared away from ordering an XL, because on paper it's saying that this is a 540 reach, which for most bikes out there would put this in the 2XL, if not even 3XL. I don't think this bike is as big as it's looking on paper. I still think that geo chart needs a little bit of a tweak, or maybe just get rid of the sizing and just go with a different approach to sizing. In my opinion, what Ibis is trying to do is they're trying to let you know that you're not just going to be just one size. You might be able to fall in between. You might be able to go with a large or an extra large or a small or a medium. It just depends on how you want that bike to ride. And I do think that's a cool approach. Like I said, if I wanted the nimbleness of the previous generation of the Ripley, I'd go with a size large on this thing. However, if I want a much more stable enduro style feel to the bike, I'd go with the XL. And the cool thing with someone like Jensen USA is they have amazing customer service, and they'll be happy to chat with you based off of your riding style to determine what size bike you should be on. Another thing that I don't necessarily love about the current Ripley is the suspension that they put on it. I do think that this bike in its current form is probably one of the most capable bikes they've come out with, especially in terms of the Ripley, and there's so much potential for this thing to be an amazing enduro style bike. I do understand the Ripley is not necessarily in that category. However, the bike rides much more capable than its numbers on paper are showing you to believe. And I do think that the Fox 34 feels slightly outdated for this style of bike. I do think there is some other suspension out there that might be a little bit better applicable for this bike, like the RockShox Pike. I actually think between the Pike and the current Fox 34, the Pike is a stiffer platform and has a little bit more of a plusher feel to it. The Fox 34 definitely still feels like it's kind of staying in that more XC, slightly trail side of the spectrum, and I do feel like there are some stiffer offerings out there. I would actually also say that this bike would probably benefit from a Fox 36 up front. Once again, there's so much downhill performance on here. The same goes for that rear shock. I do like the Fox float on a little bit more XC style bikes, or even a little bit more on the XC trail spectrum. I do feel like with this bike, it has such a bottomless feel to it, and it has so much potential from its suspension. Something like a Fox Float X would probably be a little bit better suited. Another thing to keep in mind is the tune with these Fox Float shocks. It's a little bit kind of minimal in terms of the adjustments you can make. bike. If you find myself running it in the stiffer settings, it would be nice to play around with the high speed and low speed compression settings, because I did feel like I wanted a little bit more mid-stroke support. For me, I come in at about 185, 190, depending on what I ate that day. And yeah, I just felt like for me and my riding style and how bottomless this thing felt, it would have been nice to have a little bit more mid-stroke support. And so that's something I got to point out there. Overall, I love the new aesthetics of the frames. I feel like they did an amazing job with the lines on the Ibis Ripley. And I also love the logo on that top tube. However, I would get rid of that 27.5 and 29 numbers on the actual paint. So quick summary of the stock Ibis Ripley V5 I've been testing out. Absolutely love this bike. I think it is night and day more confidence-inspiring than the previous generation Ripley. It did lose a little bit in terms of its nimbleness. However, I do think this is going to be much more capable and much more likely to be that one bike quiver for a lot of riders out there. How does this bike stack against other bikes in the 130mm travel category? You guys are going to have to stay tuned and be sure to subscribe for a big project we have coming at you guys soon. Hopefully you guys enjoy that project when it does come out. Huge thank you Jensen USA for sponsoring this video. If you guys have any other questions, let us know in the comment section. Happy to answer them. And with that being said, until next time, you guys, ride awesome. You.